Hi guys, in today's video we're going to be having a look at getting your first tarantula. So like I said before guys, we're going to be having a look at some of the basic things that you will require for receiving your first tarantula and some things to look out for when buying that tarantula, and just trying to make everything a more pleasant experience for yourself so you can get into the hobby of keeping tarantulas and just have the time of your life staring at your spider all night, just like I do. This is going to be in two parts. In today's video I'm going to be looking at enclosures you can use, different types of enclosures at different budget prices. So I'm going to be looking at the high-end enclosures compared to the cheap basic enclosures. All of these enclosures work perfectly. In fact, I do think that some of the cheaper enclosures are actually better for the spider, but we'll get into that during the video. Part 2 will be some of the extra bits that I wish somebody would have told me before I bought my first tarantula. This is going to cover stuff like some of the tools that you might need, or what to feed your tarantula, but we'll get onto that in next week's video. So this week we're going to look at enclosures, next week we're going to look at tips and tricks when buying your first tarantula. So guys, let's start the video with what I consider the best enclosure for a beginner tarantula, which you will likely pick up. Now these enclosures are only going to cover the terrestrial tarantulas, the New World terrestrial tarantulas, which I believe you should start with when you're getting your first tarantula. So I'm not going to be covering any arboreal enclosures in this video. If you would like me to include a list of arboreal enclosures, or for me to do a video on them, please let me know down below and I will be sure to get on that. We'll start with my Grammostola pulchra, which is in this Exoterra faunarium. In my opinion, it's the perfect size for a subadult tarantula. I'm assuming your first tarantula is going to either be juvenile or subadult. I probably wouldn't put a juvenile in this enclosure. I would stick with a subadult or a small adult. Now, as you can see, it's just the perfect size. They look good, they are well ventilated. I mean, the arid species that you're more than likely going to start with don't mind these ventilation holes. These ventilation holes aren't rigid, so I don't think a tarantula would get its fangs stuck or snapped off in this. So I do believe they are like fang friendly. Yeah, it's like these ones here as well. Well ventilated, they look nice, and they are stackable if you plan on getting more than one tarantula. As far as pricing goes, these are relatively cheap, which I believe are about anywhere between 15 and 20 pounds. I know you can buy them on Amazon as well, which is great if you wanted to buy them in bulk. But another good feature is the flip up lid. As you are getting used to your tarantula, it is nice and handy to be able to open this lid without taking the whole enclosure off while you're just getting used to how your tarantula behaves. Or, I mean, when I first got my tarantula, I was very, what would you call it? I was very apprehensive every time I opened the enclosure because I didn't want it running off. But having this flip lid here, it just really helps prevent the tarantula running up and over the sides, as it's got to go up through this first. So yeah, a big bonus for people who are just getting into the hobby. Just always make sure that you close it shut, because I've had an enclosure where I've left it open slightly. Luckily the tarantula didn't get out, but it quite have easily pushed that up and got out. So yeah, as you can see, there's just plenty of space in here for a tarantula of this size. This is my Grammostola pulchra male. He's about, what would you say, 4 inches. So if you're going to be getting something that's around 4 inches long, this won't be a problem. I'll just change this water dish while I'm here. Bonus for next week, tongs. So yeah, I highly recommend these enclosures. Inexpensive, they look good, stackable, and are perfect for terrestrial tarantulas. I would even go as far as saying they can be used for some fossorial tarantulas, but that is for the more, well, I wouldn't say for the more experienced keepers, but for someone who's looking for something a bit more feisty, or a bit more challenging, should I say. So like I said, this is the Exoterra faunarium, and I will post maybe I'll post a link if I can find one on Amazon, but most pet shops do sell these, relatively inexpensive and absolutely perfect for a tarantula. Okay, so next on the list are the really useful boxes, or commonly referred to as rubs within the snake hobby. But not only are these ideal for snakes, these make the perfect juvenile and adult tarantula enclosure. As you can see here, this is my Brachypalma bomi taco. A juvenile tarantula is probably about 3 inches in leg span. You can see, absolutely ideal for this species. I do believe that the cloudiness of the box plays a benefit not for the keeper but for the tarantula, as it probably gives the tarantula blocks a lot of the light out, so it gives it the impression it's darker in there. But yeah, the only problem with these enclosures is you have to put the ventilation holes in yourself. So to do this, all I do is use a 3 to 4mm drill bit and just very slowly drill the holes through. It's always handy to put something hard on the back of this while you're drilling so it doesn't crack the plastic. But yeah, you'll need to put them on the top and around the side as well. But yeah, again, very cheap to make. I'd put these at number 2 over the Exoterra faunariums only because they are cloudy and you have to put your own ventilation holes in. But the cloudiness does have its benefits for the tarantula. And while it's out, we'll just get some quick shots of Taco. Absolutely stunning. But yeah, he seems happy in this enclosure. Just make sure he's got some water because it has been hot for the last couple of days. Staying on the topic of rubs, this is an 18 litre really useful box. I use this one for my dubia roaches at the moment, but I mean, again, for a fully grown adult tarantula, if that is what you're getting for your first tarantula, this would be absolutely ideal. Again, stackable, waterproof. If you're having an adult tarantula, you can get some larger holes. These are 7mm bits to make these holes. Again, be really careful when you're drilling because you don't want to crack the plastic and make it look horrible. But yeah, you can get a lot of substrate in here, which is the tarantula. I wouldn't put it all the way to the top because the tarantula will bring some of the dirt out. But yeah, again, there's no tarantula in here at the moment, but I would definitely use one of these for my adult tarantulas. Some of the larger species like the Gramstola, Pulchripes or the Lasiadoras, or maybe even a Burgundy Goliath bird eater, but I wouldn't expect you to get one of them for your first tarantulas. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you have got one for your first tarantula, congratulations to you, because I would love one. But yeah, absolutely perfect. Again, the only downside is drilling your own holes, but I mean, once you get used to doing it, that's fine. As you can see here, I did crack this one, so you have got to be careful. That's a 3 litre, I recommend the 3 litre size for juveniles, because it gives you plenty of space for them to burrow. And for an adult, an 18 litre box. If we look over here, I've got a corn snake setup in a 43 litre box. There's almost like a temporary quarantine setup. So yeah, again, I don't think when the Really Useful Box Company made all these products, I really don't think they expected the exotic community to use them in bulk for their animals. But yeah, thank you Really Useful Box, and if you want to sponsor me, please let me know because I am gagging to get as many of these as possible. I would just like to take a short break during the video to give a huge thank you to Amy at Pet Rock and Roll, and for all the guys that make the Tarantula Tubers Saturday night takeaway happen. I entered their competition last weekend or the weekend before, which was it was like a pre-warm up to the Fatal Fangs competition, and as a contender they sent me these 2 awesome stickers out. So again, thank you guys, much appreciated, and shout out to the Invertebrarian. Moving on to those of you who have wads of cash lying about and aren't afraid to spend it on your tarantulas, these are the Exoterras. Now this is set up for my ball python. I wouldn't recommend anything of this size for any tarantula, to be honest. The maximum I'd go would be just half of this. So as you can see, I mean, even that's rather large. But I mean, for a fully grown tarantula, that is plenty of space. If you're only planning on getting the one, that is. So yeah, the Exoterra, obviously they look absolutely fantastic. A real eye-pleasing enclosure. The downsides to these enclosures are the fact that you're going to have to replace the mesh lids on top. You can either take the whole thing out and just put some perspex around the rim and then fasten it in with these. A lot of people tend to cut the mesh out and then glue or silicone, should I say, some animal safe non-toxic silicone. Use that and silicone that to that, and then just place the frame back in. Again, it's a lot of work, but if you want a really nice looking enclosure, you can't go much better than the Exoterras. I have seen a couple of enclosures going at the spider shop where they make the glass ones, and I think there was somebody on Instagram, I can't quite remember his name, I'll post it here if I do remember it. But yeah, they specialise in glass enclosures for tarantulas, so they are probably the better option. But again, if all you've got is a pet shop around you and you don't want to order enclosures online, by all means go for an Exoterra, but just be prepared to replace the mesh on top. That is all. Again, they look absolutely fantastic when they're set up. I'll stick the camera in and hope that Onyx, the ball python, doesn't decide to eat me. In fact, I can already see him coming out. But yeah, you can just see it. You could get a really naturalistic looking enclosure in here. I mean, I'd love one from the spiders, but they're just not practical enough for me. If you're just getting like a showpiece large, I don't know, let's just say a Faunapelma Simani, then like something half the size of this with a nice backdrop and some nice foliage will just look absolutely incredible in wherever you decide to display it. Yeah, let's say hello to Onyx. So last but not least, I'm just going to include all of these in a kind of a group of their own, and that is just any container you can find that has a secure lid and is very durable. So I mean, I've got a tub here full of like old plastics and whatever. Again, I've got a really small rub here, which is 0.3 litres. Really good for juvenile slings crossing over to that. No, sorry, really good for the spiderlings that's crossing over to a juvenile stage. These boxes themselves come from local pet shops. Again, they're more good for the burrowing species because obviously you can get a lot of substrate in here. Again, good for spiderlings. Any kind of plastic container. What you'll find is when you get your first tarantula, you will often walk around shops thinking, you know what, that would make a fantastic tarantula enclosure. And just go for it and experiment with these kind of things. I've seen some absolutely phenomenal creations on the internet of people, you know, really pushing the boundaries of creativity and coming up with amazing tarantula enclosures. It's just about what you can use and what you can find, really. There's no right or wrong answer to housing. Sorry, there is a right and wrong answer to keeping tarantulas, but there's not a right and wrong answer to what you keep them in. At the end of the day, the tarantula doesn't care if it's in a glass box to a shoe box. In fact, it would probably prefer the shoe box because it'd be a lot darker in there. As long as the conditions within the box are fine, that is all that matters. So all the information in this video is for juvenile to adult tarantulas. Like I say, I am starting to really like these Exoterra faunariums. I've already got 3 for my Gramistola and Triticalcal. Taco is in a really useful box. I've got a Phomictopus auratus in another really useful box. Like I said, it's just about finding the right enclosure for you. I mean, I've been through a lot of enclosures, as you can see. It's all experimental for me, and that's one thing I enjoy about the hobby. These were custom makeup boxes that I made when I first got into the hobby. I would love to make some more of these, but it's just time consuming. In here we have a freshly malted Harpactira pulchripes. This is a bonus clip for you guys who have stayed towards the end, so enjoy. Wow, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? That's the first time I've seen her properly since she's moulted. He or she, sorry, I'm not quite sure on the gender. Wow, absolutely amazing. If you enjoyed that video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave any comments down below, and I'll be sure to get back to them. And as always, I'll see you again next week. Thank you, goodbye.